Will Goldstein here, thekingscourt.com. I'm a musician, so you can always check out my music. Again, thekingscourt.com and the channel page for my YouTube channel. There's all kinds of links there. All I could do is laugh when I kind of read this one again. I'm doing Screwtape letters by C.S. Lewis, and this is number 20. He doesn't name them. However, these words are in this chapter. I'm naming it the Infernal Venus. This one's been pretty interesting. Wormwood. With great pleasure, the enemy, meaning God, because again, demons, put an end to your direct attacks on the patient's chastity. The demon was attacking him to, get him to be unchaste, and God stepped in through the power of the Spirit to help him. He always does that, and you ought to have stopped it before that stage. If he saw that was going to happen, and then he should have stopped it, backed off, so that, again, that God wouldn't have stepped in, and then he could have crept his way back in like a sneaky cat. Oh my God, it's so funny. Your man has now discovered these attacks don't last forever. Consequently, you cannot use again what is our best weapon, the belief there is no hope of getting rid of us except by yielding. That's a very interesting statement in terms of temptation. So there are two ways. He only says one, and I'm going to say the other with it. So there's only two ways to get rid of temptation. Look at temptation this way. You're tempted to do something, and you try to resist. And then it comes stronger and stronger and stronger until it can literally drive you crazy with the temptation to sin or do whatever you're doing. But then, of course, it will press on until it achieves its goal, which is to get you to submit and be a slave. And then guess what happens? It's all peace again. The demons fled because you yielded. And that's exactly what he's talking about. But the scripture says there's another way to deal with that. Resist the devil and he will flee from you. Which I'm surprised he didn't put that in here, Mr. C.S. Lewis. But that is the other way. If you, of course, that can be extremely difficult because of what I just said to you. Power, force, demanding your obedience, resistance, more demanding. But the only thing you can really do is literally close your eyes and call out to Jesus. I mean, that's what I do. Literally, that's the only thing you can do because you've got this demonic force overshadowing you. I'm in a ministry that I do a lot of things that are religious oriented. So the demons have been hovering over me since I was born. I was born on All Saints' Day. And as a baby, I had last rites given over me. I probably almost died at least 15 times. The devil's tried to kill me. My entire life, demons have been swarming around me. Legions, okay? In fact, I could get even more graphic. So the other way is, again, I said, to resist the devil and he will flee from you. If we can't use his sexuality to make him unchaste, then it's best to give him a desirable marriage. A desirable marriage in their eyes, not in God's eyes. With a certain type of woman, the physical type, which he should be encouraged to fall in love with. In other words, a sex bomb. Men in their, stupidity, let's just say it, would even give a glance over there. This is decided for us by spirits far deeper down in the lowerarchy than you and I. These masters produce in every age misdirection and sexual taste. So first of all, it's like a military force down in the lowerarchy, not the hierarchy, okay? The hierarchy is in God. The lowerarchy, the further you go down into the pit of hell. Well, these are the masters, demonic masters, devils. They are giving the orders, kind of like a military force. They're going up into the upper echelons but never reach very high, do they? To get people like you and I to submit to their will and be their slaves. And which would, of course, assure for them trophies in hell for their success. Concerning sexual taste, through popular artists, dressmakers, actresses, and advertisers, and basically the media, they determine the fashionable style. The aim is to guide each sex away from being spiritually happy in fertile marriages, basically based on God. That's the aim of the sex in the media, is to draw you away from being happily married in a Christian marriage with a woman who loves God and serves God, and to be with her and to love her, to guide you away from that, to be enticed by the lust of the eyes so that you follow these sex bombs or the infernal Venus. We have, for many centuries, made certain characteristics of the male, such as the beard, disagreeable to many females. I'm sorry, women out there. I know. I hate shaving. What can I say? I've only shaved like 3 times in my life, I think. Something like that. And besides, God made me to be a man. Why would I ever want to disapprove of how he created me? He wanted me to have a beard. As regards the male taste, at one time the statuesque and aristocratic type of beauty, mixing men's vanity with desires while encouraging to breed the most arrogant and prodigal women. So notice that picture that he's giving. So this is what the media is trying to, and every aspect of the media is trying, at least at one point in history, is trying to produce. Notice that imagery again, the statuesque and aristocratic type with men's vanity and their desires over women. The ones that they're going to breed with are, of course, the arrogant women and the prodigal women. At another time, we've exaggerated the feminine type, faint and languishing, that produce folly and cowardice, falseness and littleness of mind. Oh, she's so feminine. I'm out smelling flowers for sure. This is again C.S. Lewis. At present, it's the age of jazz. We teach men to like women whose bodies are scarcely distinguished from boys. They just strip it down. The media is pushing the limits as far as it's actually becoming stunning to be able to get away with what they're getting away with. For example, a woman completely nude, but in a posture that covers everything that's prohibited, or shows you right to the exact limits of where it would no longer be legal, at like a millimeter away. They're just pushing the limits to the extreme, all led by demons to lure men away and destroy their sexuality. We promote a kind of beauty so that we can aggravate the female's chronic horror of growing old and make her less willing and able to bear children. Some women spend too much time probably looking in the mirror. I'm not married. I was married for 32 years, but I'm not married. But I have a few women friends. One of my women friends, we communicate a fair amount. She was conscientious about sending me a recent photo of her because she's my age. I'm 73, and she's actually, well, she's somewhere around that age. So she was conscientious about sending me that because she's looking in the mirror, and it's just like, she was a very beautiful woman when she was younger, and so it's difficult for her to do that. Some women, they spend too much time looking in the mirror and they worry and fret about the wrinkles and everything because they're just too caught up in that, and they're just in the society that we live in and the way they were brought up. The society now allows the representation of the nude and exhibition on stage or in bathing beaches. I don't need to get into that. There's hot springs that people go to. There's nudist camps that people go to. There's all kinds of stuff that people in nude beaches. My simple advice is stay away. It's all it's just going to do is just fill your mind with lust. Just stay away. They're all out there just flaunting their beautiful bodies, or sometimes not so beautiful. Women in bathing suits or tights are pinched in and propped up to make them appear more slender. The modern world is taught to believe we are getting back to nature. So it's again that whole idea, and not just the nude beach, but when they actually are wearing bathing suits, again, they're pushing the limits to the exact lines that they can get away with legally. And so they're basically, the woman is literally, and it's unbelievable that these women or even teenagers are out there flaunting their bodies like that. They're basically standing there nude with just, little strips of cloth. Or, their mothers maybe should have second thoughts about letting them do that. We are directing the desires of men to something which does not exist, making sexuality more important, and at the same time, its demands more impossible. What he's trying to say there is create lust, and then the fulfillment of the lust is denied. Create the fantasy in the mind, drag your mind down into the pit of hell with all your lustful desires, and then make it unreachable. So you can't even achieve what your demented mind has wanted to go to. It's just a trap, a hellish trap, really. The general strategy of the moment is to encourage your patient's desires in one of two directions. Men are haunted by at least two imaginary types of women. One of them is a terrestrial woman, so let's just call that an earthly woman. Actually, my wife that I married was very much like that, flower child with beautiful dresses. They're kind of from the hippie era. And, when she was younger, I'm sure she was wearing flowers in her hair. And so a very earthy type woman. And then the other one is the Infernal Venus. God, of course, is presenting this one type, the woman of noble character. She's mixed with charity, obedient to marriage, and colored with light of reverence and naturalness. That's the kind of woman that God wants you to have. A woman, like I said, in the Bible, Proverbs 31 would be a perfect description of that, one of the places. Now, I'm not going to go into all about the woman of noble character. I have a song called Woman of Noble Character. Basically, she has reverence for her husband. She loves her husband. She serves the community. She brings light to the family. She honors her husband. The people in the community adore her because she's always out doing things for other people. She's very kind-hearted, and some of them are actually extremely beautiful at the same time. They're like the perfect women. Why couldn't I have one, God? But, that's just the way it is. That's one type of woman. And there's another type that men desire brutally, which draws him away from marriage. Even when he's in marriage, he tends to treat her as a slave, an idol, or an accomplice. So notice the words that he used to draw him away from marriage. So let's say she's a mistress who's tempting him, or someone who wants to take this man away from his wife. So she's seducing him away from his wife, maybe for his money. And sometimes this type of woman is even in marriage, but she's so not fit for marriage, let's just put it that way, that the man tends to treat her as a slave or as an idol or as an accomplice. It's just like, in other words, it's all about money, it's all about sex, nothing else. I don't really have any interest in you. You can breed my children, or the other way around, whatever. It's just not a loving relationship, is what he's saying. And the adulterer, the enemy calls evil. The man would wish that she was not someone else's wife and be sorry that he could not lawfully have her or love her. Some men might look at other women that are married. I can't believe I just thought of this. My wife actually was quite an attractive, beautiful woman. That's a whole nother story. But, one time I was sitting in church, this actually happened, and a guy sitting across from me looked at me and looked at my wife, and he basically, I don't know if I can't remember exactly what he said, but I can remember the point that he was trying to make. Let's just put it that way. Why did you deserve her and not me? He literally said basically that to me. It was pretty amazing. He was wondering, why did you get her? Why didn't I get her? What do you have that I don't have? I'll resist from saying anything further. And then there's the other type. That's the kind of woman that evil is what the man really wants. And that's the infernal Venus, like an animal, like a beast. Just the sexual aspect of it, the sulkiness, all the mind games and the tortured deception that's all going on, and the craft that's all going on, and the skill of manipulation and twisting your mind into believing this or doubting yourself. You've been conned, but she's trying to convince you that you haven't. But in reality, you have been conned, unless you finally come to the conclusion. And there's cruelty in there. Unbelievable cruelty that can happen even in a marriage if it's a bad marriage. It's really twisted and sick, the cruelty. Vengeance. God says, vengeance is mine, saith the Lord. But when you're dealing with this kind of woman, that's what you can expect. Absolute cruelty. There's all kinds of other aspects of it. The dominatrix, sadomasochism. I'm not going to get into any of that stuff. It's all about the body. It's all about sexual beauty within them, so men lust after them. Some of these women are not beautiful. They may even be ugly. They can exploit that as well in their art, and they can plays on men's minds to captivate the raw nerve of his private obsession. So no matter whether they're beautiful or not, sex is sex. So use whatever means possible to captivate them. In the words he used, the raw nerve of his private obsession. The infernal Venus, this is where he actually says those words, is no doubt a prostitute or a mistress. Those are the two modes that she travels in. There's other names for the infernal Venus. Another term that you might use for the infernal Venus is Lilith. That's in Jewish writings. But she's basically rides on Samuel. She's like the goddess of pornography. It would be the same person. You can picture them all in hell with all their wickedness, with their torches of flames, and we'll let them all burn. If you're a man who happens to be a Christian, he has been trained in this sort of nonsense. He can be induced, though, to marry her. Basically, you have an infernal Venus that is even willing to at least go through the matrimonial ceremony. Of course, with no real obligation for an infernal Venus, but the man can be induced to marry her because he's lusting after her body, even if he's a Christian, and wow, is he ever going to be thrown through a loop. After you failed as regards fornication and solitary vice, now that's what he attempted to lead this man into, fornication and solitary vice. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. There are other methods of using a man's sexuality to his undoing. They're not only efficient, but delightful. The happiness produced is of a lasting and exquisite kind. They're rejoicing whichever mode they can move in to entice a man and lead him away from the perfect example of a woman, the woman of noble character, like I gave a description earlier in this, and there's every kind of woman in between. I like to say there's every shade of gray. Some shades of gray are much darker, and some shades of gray are much light. You can't just pinpoint and say black or white, because even people who are close to black might have some light, and people who are close as you can imagine to the light might have some dark. In fact, they do. So everyone is some shade of gray. The idea is that who are you going to look for? Are you going to look for the woman of noble character, the earthy woman, the woman who believes in God, goes to church, wants to raise her children, wants to have a good family, reads the scriptures, obeys the scriptures, lives by the scriptures, honors her husband, and they have a happy life together? Is that what you're going to pursue in life? Or are you going to be conned? Let's just use the right word. Conned, swindled, hooked by the lustful trappings of the infernal Venus as she tries to entice you and seduce you by all her witchery into following after her craft. And she's really just got you like with a ball and chain, and she's trying to drag you down into the pit of hell, where you'll find a bunch of devils and demons, and they all got their torches of light, and they're all so happy to see you burn with them in their infernal flames forever and ever. I think I'll think again, and I think the woman of noble character, I wish I could have found that.